Hello, I'm Shean Atkins. I am Ward B at-large representative on the East Point City Council. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina. I'm a very, very proud Durhamite. All of the history that goes along with Durham is a huge part of who I am. And from Durham, I moved to Washington, D.C., but actually the Atlanta area and right here in the city of East Point is where I have lived most of my life. I've been here in the city of East Point for 30 years, moved here in 1995. As an at-large representative for the city of East Point, I must live in a particular ward, which is Ward B for me. In our ward, I have a ward mate that I share that ward with. We've got 9 neighborhoods within our ward, and I'm very proud of all of the work that the leaders of those organizations are doing and all of the citizens who attend those meetings and activities, because I firmly believe that strong neighborhood associations lead to an even stronger city. So not only am I proud of their work and dedication, I'm very happy to work with all of the leadership in each of those associations for Ward B and across the city. As I mentioned, we've got 9 neighborhoods in the ward, and those would be Center Park that we share with Ward A, Colonial Hills, East Washington, Egan Park, Jefferson Park, Martell Homes, Pomona Park, River Park, and the villages of East Point. They're very involved and very engaged. So you might imagine me being here for 30 years, a lot of the things that we talked about back then, we're also talking about today. They're still very much so discussion items. For me, with my background in architecture and city planning, economic development, smart managed growth is of great interest to me. I think it's important with my background in affordable housing and the model that we used in terms of mixed income communities, making sure that families who are on the lower end of the income spectrum are also able to enjoy any of the amenities that come to our area. And the way that we get those rich quality amenities is to make sure that socioeconomically that we diversify, and when we're building housing, particularly making sure we have various housing options for various income levels, various family sizes, all of those things are very important. I think it makes for a very diverse and strong community and a wonderful city. So professionally, my background is in architecture. I've got a professional degree in architecture from Howard University's School of Architecture and City Planning. I started working in Atlanta in 1992. I worked for an architecture firm, and then once I completed my thesis, I moved here in '94 and worked with that firm. We had a lot of work for the Olympics. We were a joint venture partner with Sizemore Floyd at that time, and we did programming for all 28 Olympic venues. Once those Olympics were over, I spent about another year in that architecture firm, and I transitioned actually to legislative government and municipal government. I was chief of staff at the Atlanta City Council for the 11th Council District for 10 years, served a decade there, and as I was there, I was learning a lot about what was happening in terms of affordable housing development. Renee Lewis Glover was the president and CEO at the Atlanta Housing Authority, and so I eventually went there and worked there and was vice president until I left there after about 9 years. And I did 2 stints as a consultant with Atlanta Housing, working mostly on the Choice Neighborhood Grant to revitalize what used to be University Homes, which is now Scholars Landing, and then also what used to be Bowen Homes. We were very successful in getting planning grants for those communities as well as implementation grants, so very proud of that work, making sure that we were creating communities and neighborhoods where we address whole person, whole families, and individuals could really thrive. And since then, I've been a housing development consultant as well as a licensed realtor in the state of Georgia. So very happy about my professional background and the way that it has positioned me to serve, in my estimation, pretty effectively on the East Point City Council. Well, if you've ever attended an East Point City Council meeting or maybe just tuned in, you probably have heard me talk about boards, authorities, and commissions. And this also dovetails into the joy that I get and the important work that I think happens when you're engaging with neighborhood associations. It's really all about civic engagement. I'm a huge proponent for civic engagement. My work with the city of East Point really first started as my appointment on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Then Pat Langford, who is still a citizen here in the city of East Point, living in the East Washington community, appointed me to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I served on that commission for over 20 years, served the last decade or so probably as chair of that commission. I felt very strongly that that was a way for me to give back to my city with my architecture background, my background in legislative government and municipal government, as well as housing development. So I'm going to always be a huge proponent for civic engagement, always trying to think of ways to get families and individuals who live here in the city to be able to participate in our process so that they feel a sense of ownership, because I think that ultimately that leads to a great sense of pride.